Let's take a closer look at how the new leadership could impact Guatemala's economic growth with Michael Allison. He's joining us live from Scranton, Pennsylvania. He's the chair of the Department of Political Science at the University of Scranton. Professor Allison, we were speaking there about the economic growth. Giammattei has promised economic recovery, as we said, doubling GDP. How can he do that?
I don't think at this point there are very many people who believe he will be able to achieve double the economic growth that Guatemala has experienced for the last decade. It's been at 3.1% for several years now, and it's possible that with some needed foreign direct investment, some reforms to the country's investment laws, that it could attain some economic growth rate more like 4 to 5%. But nowhere near what Giammattei has promised during his campaign.
So I guess I should ask, why does he believe he can double it?
I believe Giammattei believes that the country's investment is being held back by high levels of insecurity and by corruption in the country, and perhaps by tackling the insecurity that scares investors away from doing business with the country, and corruption that eats away at a lot of the revenue and the resources that would be going to the Guatemalan citizens and to the government. By tackling these two issues, perhaps he believes that it'll spur the needed economic growth to help him attain over 6%.
Giammattei once headed Guatemala's prison system. He also spent some times behind bars, but I think it's safe to say he knows about the violence and the crime in the country. But there's also, as you mentioned, the issue of corruption. 3 of the last 4 presidents have gone to jail after leaving office. The current outgoing president, Jimmy Morales, disbanded the Anti-Graft Commission. Is Giammattei the right man for this fight?
There's no single individual who really will bring progress or to Guatemala. The challenges confronting the country are much greater than a single individual. However, there are real concerns with Giammattei's his background, his allies in his political party, and other people who have surrounded him for the last 20 years as he's campaigned for the presidency. So I think there are many of us, including myself, who do not believe he is the right person to tackle corruption in Guatemala.
He's also focused a lot on prosperity. He says prosperity will stop mass migration north. Do you believe there's merit to that that's actually achievable?
Yeah, the reasons why Guatemalans head north to the United States is complicated. Many of them leave for insecurity because of drug trafficking, gang violence, organized crime, but also because of poor economic conditions that help bring about a 60% poverty rate. There's environmental factors that are also worsening the situation in much of the dry corridor of the country. But I do believe that, should Guatemala experience more robust economic growth and provide a living wage for the citizens of the country, it will move somewhat in the direction of reducing migration to the United States. However, all the causes are interrelated. You can't tackle the economy without tackling the violence, and you can't tackle either of those effectively without tackling corruption.
Now, sticking with migration, we know that President Morales signed a so-called safe third country agreement with U.S. President Donald Trump. It's still unclear if that would even legally hold domestically there in Guatemala. But how does Giammattei's election change that equation, if at all?
Everyone in Guatemala has more or less spoken out against the safe third country agreement with the United States. However, some believe that the consequences for not accepting the agreement in terms of taxes on remittances, some travel restrictions on Guatemalans, and tariffs from the United States would be worse than anything that the country would suffer with the acceptance of this agreement. Giammattei seems to fall into that category where at this point he doesn't want to alienate the United States, but he wants to try and make the agreement that the country signs with the U.S. as beneficial or as least harmful as possible to the people of Guatemala.
voter turnout, as you know, was significantly low. Do you think that Giammattei has the mandate to do the things that he wants to do?
No, I think the same reasons why only 40% or so of the country turned out to vote in this weekend's election is the same reason why hundreds of thousands of Guatemalans are leaving their country. There was a sense of excitement and opportunity back in 2014 and 2015 that the Guatemalan people were going to be able to hold some of their leaders accountable for crimes that had been committed during the country's civil war, as well as crime and corruption that was committed in the post-war period. Much of those investigations and the opportunities to follow through on those investigations and prosecutions really came to a standstill under President Morales' administration as he made numerous efforts to undermine the rule of law and the strengthening of institutions in the country.
All right, Professor Michael Allison from the University of Scranton, thank you for joining us.